Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
I'm Dan Sams.
And you're joining us for one of the last episodes of the year. We've only got this week, next week, and the week after that. If we don't record something early, I won't be able to do the 28th.
Yeah.
Petey going in for another surgery.
Oh my, yeah. Well,
Moved it from the 29th to the 28th.
I'll probably be in West Virginia then. Maybe we'll ride out the.
That looks like a moonshine mug. Like it just looks like it deserves to have moonshine in it.
You know what? It does deserve to have moonshine in it, just like I deserve to have moonshine in me. It is a Yeti mug, but I like it a lot, and this does seem to be perfect for that old Mountain Dew. You know
what's funny is this is the cup that I have most of my coffee in.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big mug, and the reason why I have coffee in it is because it's so big. But all it is more water. It's not like I put more coffee in it because I have a Keurig machine, right? So it's just, but some reason, the large mug makes me feel like I'm drinking more coffee.
I feel you, man. I like it.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff going on in the world today.
So much, man. So much.
I want to start it because this is a gun podcast. Mm-hmm. We got to start it with the Polymer 80 raid, and I'll even share some of my thoughts on, the fallout of them supposedly going after customers of Polymer 80. Because I'm going to tell my theory on that. But anyway, why don't you tell everyone what happened at Polymer 80, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, so you guys know we've talked about 80% lower receivers several times on the show. We're big fans of them. We think they're a wonderful thing. Polymer 80 is one of they're pretty popular. There's plenty of other guys out there, but our understanding is Polymer 80 got rated by the ATF sometime late last week, and it's still not completely clear as to why. So we're I'm honestly trying to piece together.
They're saying it's because of their man, what was it, like build shoot kit or whatever they called it? I can't remember, but it was a complete kit. So it had your upper, your lower, your trigger, your barrel. I mean, it literally had all of the pieces necessary to create your own firearm, but you still had to finish it.
Yeah, and that's why it's still not clear to me that it seems surrounded around that issue, and yet it's just we can buy all those same parts and there's no issue. I'm not sure why
and they don't have a problem. The ATF doesn't have a problem with it if like you ordered it all from the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
It's the fact that they had it in a kit.
Yeah.
That is supposedly the issue, which someone else brought up, and they go, okay, well now the ATF is shooting itself in its foot because now what constitutes 80% complete? Because does it mean we leave the barrel out and we can actually have a finished lower that we're sending, but it's now 80% there?
Yeah.
So
it still doesn't make sense to me. It's honestly very similar to what they were doing to Q back. I think that was maybe late October. It's unclear, and I think that's part of my issue here. In the same way that they're harassing Q and not really saying why. So it is here. It's like, well, it doesn't look like any rules have been broken. Why are we messing with these guys? Now, I've heard some theories, nothing substantiated, but some theories that say it has to do with potentially a staff worker was using the machine kind of like during his lunch break or whatever to make stuff that was maybe going out another way.
How would they even know?
How would they know? And again, that would be an internal issue. That's like, well, either we let this guy do that, or if he's pilfering somehow, well, then that would be a problem. But that's that's not an ATF issue. That's don't pilfer our stuff, man. So this is the thing that happens with anytime something is not clear. All the speculation kind of comes in there. And I mean, to some degree, it's understandable. But this is the frustration. If you are trying to be a law-abiding citizen and the rules keep changing, or the enforcement of the rules keeps changing, it's just a headache. And at some point, people are saying, like, oh, it's easier to just break the law. Why am I going to try so hard to be legal if they're just going to mess with me even when I'm doing it the right way? So might as well drill that third hole, buddy.
Right. I mean, first of all, polymer 80s to me are one of the best inventions ever.
They're amazing.
I've made at least 6 that I can think of. And then after California changed its law, there was actually something that happened that I was like, you know what? I don't trust that I'm not going to get raided by somebody. And that was why, and this is a true story, I literally chopped up all of my polymer 80s. Like, I've got all of the parts. I took out all the triggers and obviously all the slides and barrels. So I have plenty of uppers. In fact, I think I should start selling them, because I was seeing some people sell their uppers, and I'm like, yeah, man, mine are barely even used. I bet you I could, bring in a, few $100 extra this Christmas season and maybe put that towards another AR. But anyway, I loved them. I mean, I learned so much about how Glocks work. I mean, it's not technically a Glock, but it's the same parts.
Yeah.
I loved them. Absolutely loved them.
So you chopping up your polymer 80s reminds me of, like, I had a good friend that had a lot of really great music back in the 70s on vinyl that's like collector stuff now. And he got saved and went to a church that was really big on, like, you need to burn all of your secular music. And he burned all these amazing albums. And I'm like, no. And so he was telling me about all these albums he had. And I'm like, no, man. And so that's the way I feel with the polymer 80s, man. So, like,
but the problem for us here in California is they changed the law that I believe is unconstitutional, as we believe all gun laws are unconstitutional. But this was even more so, because what the law said was, if you have a firearm that you've ever made, basically, it has to have a serial number. That means going all the way back to 1968, when they started putting serial numbers on, like, everything required it at that point. And it's like, okay. And that was the reason I was like, look, you know what? If I get served with a warrant and someone comes and searches my house, that's an immediate, in California, go to jail crime, even though no one has been punished for that yet here in California. I don't want to be the test case.
You don't want to be that guy.
I don't want to be the test case. And so that was why I got rid of them. And then I did buy some polymer 80s, and I've never touched them. So right now they're just hunks of plastic, and I just leave them in case I ever need them. I have all of the parts and the knowledge on how to put those guys back together. Or if I ever get to move to a free state, if I ever convince my family to move to a free state, then those suckers are getting built out probably the day I arrive.
Could you? Yeah. I've got all these theories. Like, what makes it 80? Could you fill it with silly putty and it technically not be drilled out? That's a terrible idea. Don't do that.
No. Again, who wants to be the test case? Because you're going up against the government that has unlimited funding, and they will spend it just to burn you and set the precedence.
Yep.
So who wants to be that guy?
You just don't want to be that guy.
But I just think it's really, really, and then the reports were coming out literally the very next day. So I believe that happened on Thursday, and then or maybe it was Wednesday it happened. And then Thursday, because it was the 10th, this guy goes, oh, I just had an ATF agent show up at my house, and he wanted all of my build, shoot, whatever kits that I had, and told me if I didn't give them to him, he was going to get a warrant and come back and search my entire house. And first of all, I'm like, I don't know that I believe that. And he's like, oh, here's the paperwork they gave me. First of all, it looks like it's written in pencil, which makes me again go, I don't know that I believe that. And secondly, first of all, the ATF, if they show up at your house, they will show up with a warrant. This is not an organization that shows up and says, you better give it to us or we're going to go get a warrant. If they can get a warrant, you can bet your ass they're coming back with a warrant.
Yeah. The ATF usually gets warrants, doesn't tell you about them, and then shoots your son in your backyard while they're serving it. That's how they do things. So, yeah, we don't expect them normally to show up and say, hey, do this or we'll get a warrant. Yeah. They're going to get the warrant. They're going to do whatever they want.
If they show up and they're like, do this or we're going to get a warrant, that means I couldn't get a warrant based on what I had. So I'm going to threaten you with it. Give me this. So, I mean, but still, I understand because, you know, do you really want the government going through your house, considering the fact that it's estimated the average American breaks 3 felonies a day without even knowing? Like, that's how many laws this country has. Mm-hmm. I mean, what stuff do I have in my house that's technically illegal that I don't even know or realize?
Yeah.
You know, in California, it could be, oh, you don't have a low flow toilet, you're going to jail. I mean, we got like, oh, you got straws, right? I mean, I don't even know what laws I'm breaking because there's so many on the books now. So I get the whole, if someone shows up, do you just bite the bullet and go, all right, here you go. Here's all my parts. You know, don't come search my house. I get that. But at the same time, I'm like, I think we'd see that happen a lot more on the internet. We'd be hearing about a lot of people. I just don't buy the fact that literally within hours of them raiding and supposedly getting the customer list, they're at people's houses.
Yeah.
I don't buy that.
So I understand. It seems a little bit of a stretch, and I'm not necessarily believing that it happened, but I wouldn't put it past him at the same time. I mean, already we're talking about their rating over a non-issue. Like, they got in there.
Yeah, but then they would have to literally, oh, okay, well, this guy's close enough. We can go out there. Let's go out there. Right. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. The only thing I can see happening is if the raid itself was a straw man because they suspect somebody of something else and they wanted to get to that end user and they needed some way to get there.
Yeah, but, no, 100% there. And I mean, if they had a way to quickly take the list and search it for known felons, I could see them going after known felons. Mm-hmm. But just going after like
just an
Schmo. Yeah, John Doe over here. He bought one of these build, shoot, whatever kits they call it. Let's go to his house and show up.
Again, I wouldn't put it past him, but I'm not sure that that's what's happened here. To
me, it just doesn't smell right. Honestly, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know that I buy that this is actually. This to me is like a typical, hey, let's make the internet go crazy. They're all going to think they're coming after us. Blah blah blah. But at the same time, I was like, crap, dude, I'm glad I never bought that kit from Polymer 80. You know? I'm like, I don't think I ever bought anything directly from Polymer 80. I bought them from, every site out there, but just not Polymer 80.
Yep. Well, and P80, man, released a statement saying, like, business as usual. Like, they didn't shut us down or anything. We're still buy from us. Let's go.
Oh, did they really? Okay, I didn't realize that.
Their statement. Hold on, I pulled up this statement a little bit. First they blah blah blah. They essentially saying, hey, we've always cooperated with the law. As long as they come with rightful questions or whatever, we're happy to be helpful and not be jerks. But I'm looking at the wrong one. There was another statement that essentially said, like, yeah, you can still buy from us. We're not shut down.
To me, again, it's like, okay, this isn't smelling right then, because if the ATF comes in and says, okay, you're selling firearms across state lines, you're not sending the FFLs, but we're still going to let you continue to operate your business. Like, there's a problem here. There's something fishy going on that doesn't make any sense. Look, I have literally been at a company that was raided by not the ATF, but by the FTC, and then they had the whole alphabet soup with them. They did not just go, hey, we're raiding you, we're taking your stuff, but you can continue to work. They shut down the place. And they interviewed every employee and walked them out.
Yep.
Like, it was locked up, receivers were in place, and then they were running the show. So I don't know that there's something fishy about all of this that I'm not buying.
I was going to try to find, I'm looking at the wrong statement, but I mean, I remember reading that like, hey, you can still buy from us. Like, don't worry, we're not shut down. Um, Actually, it might have been on their Instagram, but yeah, man, the whole thing, everything about it is strange and shady. Um, yeah, Polymer 80 Inc.
And then as a follow up, so as we've talked about before on the show, 80% Arms, which is a California company, they created I believe it's the GS9, which is their version of a Glock 80% that just looks awesome. And I had ordered
Glock, actually.
What's that?
I like it better than a Glock.
Yeah, because it's so convertible. Like you can do Glock 19, Glock 17. What kind of? I mean, you could do Glock 19X. I mean, very versatile.
And it just looks. I don't know what it is. It just looks.
I know, right? So I had ordered one over 6 months ago. They'd never mailed it, which is a common thing. Everyone's been griping and complaining about this. And their excuse has been, oh, well, we got overwhelmed. And then it was like, oh, we got another batch in and we didn't like how they turned out. So we sent them back. I'm like, okay, so in other words, you're telling me you're not ready yet to be in the big leagues. Your stuff is still prototype stage and you're trying to sell it. But then after Polymer 80 last week, I'm like, refund me my money. You guys are getting rated next, man. Refund me my money. And so they said, okay, we'll refund your money. I'm like, thank you. 6 months later, still nothing from you.
That's way too long.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, they're breaking the law. Like we've talked about this on the podcast, Optics Planet, how they take forever to send you anything, but then they take forever to charge you because it's against the law. You can't charge someone money and then not deliver the product within 30 days unless you tell them ahead of time, we're charging you now. It's going to ship in 6 months. They never did that over there at 80% Arms because they didn't know. They didn't know when they're going to ship.
Oh, man. Shady.
Yeah.
That makes me want to go in and buy from Polymer 80 now. Just to support them. And I'm like, maybe I could get on a watch list this way. I'm
sure you're already on the watch list.
I mean, like, I want to be on all the cool ones.
Until you want to fly again and do a mission trip down to Nicaragua or wherever you go.
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, oh, man, I wish I wasn't on that watch list anymore.
Yeah, because we all know that you know what they say about federal investigations, the third time's a charm.
The third time's a charm.
Can't have that third investigation. We might have real trouble then. All the other ones were accidental. I was never an official suspect.
That's great. So tell me, what are your thoughts on? Well, why don't you tell everyone what you've been hearing with Biden's buyback?
Yeah,
of the assault weapons.
Here's part of the thing that's going on here. It is always difficult, especially at this stage, to know how much is just a politician being a blunderbuss about something and how much is what they're actually going to do. An example is Trump talked a pro to a talk that I never believed. And then his executive order related to bump stocks has opened up a terrible can of worms for us, that by executive order, something can be declared illegal is just wicked, right? And so, I never want to trust what somebody says when they're a politician. We are in a unique time, though, in which so much is happening to move I would actually say so much is happening to move both the Republican and Democrat parties to the left. But obviously, the Democrats are moving so far to the left so fast. And their association with totalitarian behavior is higher now than I would say it's maybe ever been. And so I would say, I'm saying all this under the guise of, I never know how much to believe. I never know how much is this them being blowhards, but I also acknowledge that some of them have delivered on some pretty stern action. Kamala Harris being a great example. Just recently, I think it's Jen O'Malley Dillon, who was Biden's campaign manager and now is to be his deputy chief of staff, is essentially making the statement that they're going to do gun buybacks and that they are going to be mandatory. And so has not really gotten real specific on what rifles. They said something like certain rifles or whatever. We can imagine that they're probably thinking of AKs and ARs when they say that. That news, just along with some of the other things that they've been saying. I mean, we know that there's been language of essentially taxing every part of your AR-15 and making you get a tax stamp for everything, all that kind of stuff. And now this, I would say, again, I'm not sure that it's going to happen. They're still going to have to cover some technical barriers. And yet, Trump had a wonderful precedent for them that allows them to do things by executive order. So, yeah, I'm not sure it's going to happen, but my concerns are there. Does that make sense? They're making the statements. They're claiming this is what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, It unfortunately makes sense, because I remember when I was talking to people, family members on Facebook, and I'm like, look, I'm not voting for Trump. I can't vote for Trump. They're like, oh, well, Biden's going to take away your guns. I'm like, what do you think Trump's been doing?
Yeah.
Trump set the precedent.
He's been taking away my guns.
Don't tell me that Trump is a pro 2A when he did what he did.
Well, and he's letting the ATF, in fact, maybe even encouraging them to run rampant. I mean, for crying out loud, the polymer raid is happening on his watch. This is still his watch.
Yep.
He's letting this crap happen. He could make some quick changes. He could make some things happen. He's not, because he's anti-gun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's from New York, so of course he's anti-gun.
Yeah.
But so I look at the whole thing and I'm disappointed, because what's going to happen if Biden does do any executive orders on ARs or whatever, and anyway, mandatory buyback, magazine restriction, whatever, it's going to immediately go to the courts, because if the NRA doesn't do anything, then they're officially dead, and they know that. So that means they'll go to bat. Whether or not they're wholehearted behind it is a whole nother issue.
They've been doing jack this whole time anyway.
No, with you 100%. I'm just saying they couldn't let that slide. Like, they would be exposed as the fraud organization they are to gun lovers.
Yeah.
But then you still have Firearm Policy Coalition, you got CRPA, you still have great organizations that will immediately go to the courts over that. But then it's like, okay, great. Now we're spending money on crap that we shouldn't be spending money on, because it's not like these guys have a ton of money.
Yeah.
I mean, the NRA is the only one that has a ton of money, and that's because they just give it to themselves and don't really do anything in the courts. So
that money is just for Wayne LaPierre's mansions, man.
Pretty much.
It really is bad. The FPC, man, is limited on how much they have in funds. Like, they've got some good supporters. There's some things happening. I'm always kind of impressed, but they're spread thin when it comes down to it. I mean, there's all kinds of gun cases and not enough pro-gun lawyers to be handling them, let alone fully funded. So that is a good chance to plug. I mean, nobody's sponsoring us from Firearms Policy Coalition. We just are gun lovers and know, and we've just been paying attention that the NRA has done jack for us, and we're talking about for decades.
They abandoned California so long ago, it's not even funny.
They just continually, they even support bad laws. So just quit giving your money to the NRA. And every time they call you, because by the way, they sure have the money to to pay solicitors to get you to sign up. Every time one of those solicitors comes in, which by the way, they usually know nothing. They're not actual, tell them exactly why you're not supporting them anymore. Don't give them any money, and tell them I am planning to give to Firearms Policy Coalition every dollar that I would have given to you. And or just buy guns with that money, because
or CRPA here in California.
CRPA, there you go.
CRPA does a lot. They're the ones who got us, Freedom Week. They're the ones fighting the ammo law right now. CRPA is doing a lot for us in California.
A lot of states have pretty good advocacy groups. I know we've got some pretty decent ones here in Ohio. And so, find out who your the state is and support them as well. So great stuff, man. But it's there's no question things are going to get a little trickier. And so we need to be ready for it. A nice little suggestion, maybe this is a good reason to be buying polymer 80s or just 80% lower receivers in general. I would suggest you buy them using Tor browser. And that instead of using your own credit card, go and buy with cash a Visa debit card that you put the money on, use that to make your purchase. And then, maybe ship it to someplace other than your house where you can pick it up. They just think through all those things. It wouldn't take too much to just deflect some of the attention so that you're not the first place they come to. Yeah.
But then, Dan, what happens if a little child gets a hold of it?
Well, since it's a polymer 80, if a child gets a hold of it, they can use it as building blocks.
You're saying unfinished polymer 80? It's
unfinished, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's why it's mailed to you that way, So, yeah, think through some of these things, boys and girls, so that your credit card's traceable to you. Your everything else, just think through.
Talk to them about how to build a proper time capsule tube that you can bury in your backyard using parts from Home Depot.
Oh my, yeah. People forget that, man. Those PVC pipes. You put a nice end cap on that thing so you can twist on and off. Make sure you use some good sealant when you seal the thing up. And you can make those real big, 12-inch diameter, man. You could break down your AR into 2 pieces, slip in one of those things, bury it down in the ground, or you could go
on your neighbor's property.
Yeah. Or John Wick style, man. You go ahead and just do some, concrete over it. So then they're never going to look there.
Put your gold coins with it as well.
Yeah, man. It'd be a good situation. Yeah. Or just look up how the various, learn all the ways that bootleggers used to hide stuff in houses and in cars. Some good things to learn there. We're in a wonderful world, man. Get yourself a 3D printer. There's so many wonderful things you can do.
I actually do want the 3D printer from not the 3D printer, but the CNC machine from Defense Distributed.
Oh yeah, now that's next level, man.
That's what I want, but it's $2,000 in 6 months. I mean, if it was a lot shorter lead time, I'd probably have done it. But I always look at that 6 months, even though I realized if I'd done it a year ago, I could have had 2 by this point, right?
If you just done it with COVID, you would have had it.
I know, right? But I mean, I'm looking at that thing going, look, it's not even that hard to turn your 80%er into a firearm. But with that thing, it's literally push button simple. Just boom, hit the button.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like one. If anybody wants to know what to get me for Christmas, there you go.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I want one of those too now. As long as we're suggesting. And hey, can we talk about what one of our listeners did for us?
Sure. I haven't seen mine yet. He told me, he goes, yeah, yours is on the way. I sent yours before I sent his. I'm like, yeah, but I'm on the other side of the country.
So this was one of the nicest things. Would it be all right for me to show it really quick?
Go for it.
Here. So one of our listeners, Dave, made us these wonderful storage containers with the logo and everything on it. Man, and I tell you, this is solid. The little locking mechanism is pretty handy, right? I'm pretty impressed, and of course has the foam in here for me to kind of cut out to whatever whatever I want to put in there. But I think this is nice. And I'm looking at this. I could probably, I haven't measured it, but I think we are under or right around 16 inches here. I'm pretty sure you could recess this in a wall.
Oh, nice.
I'm pretty sure from the look of it, I think I could recess it. Now, it'd get a little funny how I want to do the locking mechanism, but this is really well done. He did good work on this.
I think he's going to turn it into a business. He's doing with I think one of his grandkids.
Well, I would be really interested. Now, there might be stuff in here I haven't looked into yet, but if he could probably take this latching mechanism on here and put a magnet system on that, and then you turn this into an actual locking gun case that nobody else can get into.
I think he was telling me one of the reasons why he didn't do it, like he had like the whole RFID thing, and when he did that, he goes, it still took 2 to 3 seconds to open. He's like, look, if you actually need it, you need it to be a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So that was why they went with a more manual locking system.
I like it. Well, it's the logo. I mean, his printing on this really came out nice.
Yeah, he had that. Somebody else did that piece. Did the printed graphic on it.
Pretty high quality. Now, does he have a link that we can promote him?
Not yet, man. This is something they're just getting started up.
Now, I got to tell you, my wife teased me. Because I'm like, man, it's a secret gun case, right? And she's like, secret, huh? With we've got 2 guns on the front of it. Like I'm not sure that the thieves will crack that.
You got to put the praying hands with the cross behind it. That's what we need as the graphic.
I really do like it a lot. I am impressed. I was thankful. I thought you had sent me something, and I'm like, Pete and I don't exchange Christmas gifts. And then he's like, no, that's not me. That's Dave. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So yeah, man, Dave, get that link up, and we will promote the heck out of you, man. I think you've got something good here. He has some pictures in the ad. I won't share them. They won't look right on the screen, but of different ways to do it. Some that could very much conceal, and you wouldn't know that it was a gun case in there. So he's done good work. I'm pretty impressed with it.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, so what do you think about? Okay, so LA County just elected a new DA, and this DA. I mean, I was reading about it this morning, and I want to get your thoughts on this because I got mixed emotions on this, but. Yeah. Couple of things that this DA has already announced. Number one, he's already published a whole slew of crimes that they're not going to go after. So, of course, that basically means crime's going to go up.
Yeah.
Because if we saw the same thing happen when LA County basically said certain theft levels they're not going to even investigate. It was like if it was under $900. So now people will run into a store and they'll steal enough stuff, but they'll keep it under $900 so they don't get popped for it. So we're seeing crime go up in LA County dramatically. And so he's come out with his list of that. But then one of the things that he came out with, and I got mixed feelings on this. I really want to get your thoughts because I'm not 100% on anything when it comes to this topic. And it's the topic of bail reform. And specifically, he's come out and said, okay, we're not going to be asking for bail for most crimes anymore. And so that means it's basically, you get arrested and you're going to get released on your own recognizance and, come back for trial kind of a thing. Now, here's the reason why I got mixed feelings on it. First of all, the Constitution specifically says that that people have to be offered bail, and it's got to be something that they could actually afford. And I got a problem with sometimes now we go, oh, we're going to set your bail at $1 million, knowing full well that guy does not have $1 million to get out because we're violating the Constitution and the spirit behind it. So a buddy of mine, his brother was arrested for sexual assault. And it was actually, I don't believe it actually happened. I mean, it was a Russian stripper who literally went back to Russia while he's waiting in jail for his trial. And the state, because I believe it was a state charge, was going to fly her back from Russia. And it was just like everything about it was shady. Like I think she was trying to shake him down. He said no. Anyway, he gets arrested, but he gets $1 million bail for sexual assault. Like that doesn't even seem right to me. It wasn't even rape. It was sexual assault.
Yeah.
And there was no way he had the $100,000 bail to post for $1 million or $100,000 bond is what it would cost him to get the $1 million bail. And it's like, so he had to wait in jail. And of course, that's part of what the government does. They deliberately take away any funds that you have. So now you're stuck in jail. And what are you going to do? You're going to plead guilty. Like, get me out of here. What do I need to do? I'm pleading guilty. And I got a problem with how we've turned bail in our country. And unfortunately, bail does affect poor people disproportionately.
Yep.
And, let's say you didn't have car tags up to date, and this is another offense for you. So they arrest you and they give you $1,000 bail, and you go, oh, well, anybody can, post $1,000. No, not a lot of people can. And now you're missing work. Now you lose your job. Now you're in for good.
Yep.
And so I got a real problem with bail the way we're currently doing the whole thing. But yeah. I'd like to hear some thoughts from you. What do you think about the idea of this no bail system that like California is rushing towards, and now LA County is basically implementing?
Yeah, there's so many layers there. Right?
There is, admittedly.
And I would say I'm with you 100% that the way that bail is currently functioning in most parts of the country, is completely unconstitutional. Like, you're supposed to be able to afford the bail. And we saw things like in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation where they seemed to increase the bail to make a point. And that's just shady, just not okay. So I'm already against it, but I would say there's so many laws that we're not even applying in a way. This sounds so crazy. I know people think this sounds crazy, but I don't actually think we should have prisons. I think we should have things that either deserve the death penalty or you pay it back, or it's a non-violent offense that doesn't hurt anybody, right? And so I have views that I recognize seem crazy, but they're based on Old Testament, how God arranged criminal code. And I'm like, let's at least give that some credence here. So I'd say with a situation like this, it seems like they're creating a scenario where there's very little reason for people to return to court, right? I mean, that from the sound of it, if there's no bail and they just turn you loose that day, when I think about in an abusive situation, what happens? Can that abuser say like, oh, so you called the cops on me? Well, they arrested me. I'm already back at your house tonight. Those kinds of things. Really,
we are seeing that with the protests in some areas where they didn't have bail. Protesters would be out within hours and were back protesting and rearrested again.
Yeah, and so then you're just creating a headache.
And I'm not saying protesters. I should say the protesting is not illegal, but turning it into riots and destruction of private property, that side of it.
Yeah, the rioters. So that's where it's funny how pendulums tend to swing. And so we're handling something the wrong way, and then we decide we're just going to do it the wrong way in a different way. And that's something that we can almost always trust the state to do. They will find a way to do something wrong. And then when they're caught doing it wrong, they'll find another wrong way to do it, rather than actually look at some objective standard and say, what's a better way to handle this situation? And so I would say that's my concern, is that they're probably not thinking this through from a unintended consequences perspective. And some of these things, especially related to abusers, whatever, if somebody's stolen in a non-violent, not a robbery, but they've, burglarized some kind of scenario, that's really bad. That's really frustrating. I'm not feeling physically threatened by them though. So I'm like, okay, you want to tell this guy he's going to have to pay this back and he's going to have to come back to court on such and such day, whatever. I'm not in personal danger that night. So I'm not as freaked out. But in situations with abusers, situations where there was coercion, where there was an actual robbery, where a threat of force was used, the idea of letting somebody out quickly like that, or a rapist, or in some case, some of these other things where I'm like, what are you thinking? Yeah, so I would say in general, I'm probably not going to be for this. I'd have to see some of the specifics, but in my experience, they don't think through the specifics. They make some statement to try to gain some kind of political favor, make it sound like they really care about people, but they haven't thought it through, and so probably the application of this is going to go really bad. That's kind of my perception on it.
Yeah, and I don't know if this passed in California, but we actually I think it did pass because I asked my buddy if this applied to him. But felons have not been allowed to vote. Once you're a felon, you lose the right to vote. And then they just passed a proposition that allows them to vote.
Yeah.
And so I was asking my buddy, because see, I'm a firm believer that, now it's taxation without representation. Exactly. We're still going to tax you, but you have no say in what's happening in the government. Now, of course, unfortunately, this has become another political thing where you got, all the Republicans going, well, I don't want all those ex-felons to be able to vote because they're all Democrats. That's basically what they're saying. Whether or not that's true, that's what they're saying. And then, you got everyone else like, well, I should be able to vote. I personally am like, no, I think once you've served your debt to society, vote. Yeah, why should you have that taken away from you?
Yeah. If we have crimes that have punishments that fit them, then once they have completed the punishment, we should treat them as a regular citizen. That's how it's supposed to work. And if we don't believe in that, for crying out loud, are we even America anymore? I'm with you. Well, and then to your point earlier of that most of us commit accidentally something like 3 felonies a day. Well, then the difference is just whether or not they're enforcing it or they've caught you yet. Then we would have all lost our rights to vote.
And I think what they're doing is they're using it as an excuse. Like a lot of the gun laws that we see, well, we want to go after you and we want to get your gun, so we're going to use this obscure rule that no one even knows about, and you're going to lose the rights to ever own a gun, use a gun, whatever. I mean, that we're seeing a lot.
They do that often.
Yeah.
Well, and then I remind people then it is only enforced based on what they want to enforce. So you can say, well, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I would immediately say, no, you're not. We're all breaking these laws. And I would say, as a true law, yeah, we're law-abiding. But reality is, if they can get some guy for having too much of a plant, or any of a plant, that it tells you we're not in a situation.
That's a good point. Too much of the plant. Like, because in California, it's state legal, right, for marijuana, but under a certain limit.
Yeah.
And then if you have over that limit, you're now a distributor of it. But wait a second. What if you work for the store? Well, now it's okay because now you're a shop and you got the proper light. I mean, it's like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, in fact, we've got people that are serving effectively life sentences for marijuana possession, as their state has now legalized it and is making tax money off of it. And that guy's still in jail. That's just ridiculous. Like, that guy should be set free.
Yeah, that's why, honestly, I was encouraged when the House, passed it saying marijuana is no longer federally illegal. But I'm like, yeah, but the Republicans control the Senate. Guarantee you, it's not getting through there.
Yeah. Oh man, if we only had actual libertarians.
And what's funny is, and I always tell this to people, I've never even smoked marijuana in my life. I've never done marijuana. This is just, I'm looking at it going, this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yep. I'm with you. No, this is where we're at though, as a country right now. Think about all of these things that are applied only politically. Doesn't make anybody safer, doesn't make anything one way or the other. It makes money for certain groups of people, and it's a political chip that they get to play when they want to. And it's really, really bad. And then I tell everybody, just wait. It's going to be used against you soon. Yeah. Call it anything. Like the conversation about mandatory gun buybacks is going to affect us. But this, potentially mandatory vaccinations, which, by the way, a lot of vaccinations are effectively mandatory even now. You get somebody that has a personal belief against it, or is a little bit concerned that, like, hey, this is they're going to be able to control a lot of things. And it's just not good, you guys. So, be ready to fight against that.
Yeah.
I've got more things I could say, but I don't want us to get raided today.
Today is a bad day for raids.
It's not a good day for a raid.
Right.
Call me back later.
I love it, man. I love it. What else is happening in your life, man? Anything fun coming up for the holidays?
Buy a new gun. I'm going to buy a new gun.
Nice.
I'm going to get one for Christmas that I'm going to buy for myself. My wife is like, just go and get the one you want. So I'm going to get myself.
Tell us what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to actually, assuming when I get into the store, they have it.
Is it the Yeet cannon? Is it the Yeet cannon?
No, but I'm going to tell you, I am not joking. I just might be overcome with temptation and buy a Yeet cannon when I get in there.
That's awesome.
The plan is to get a Walther PPS M2. It is the same frame size as my Walther P22. So I could train with the 22, fire the same thing. And it is it's considered a conceal gun, but it's a pretty full-size grip on it. And so I hold it well, I shoot it well. But it's small enough I can carry for conceal. Theoretically, you could use it as as your sidearm, but it's built to be a conceal gun. But for me, a short guy like me, conceal guns are like regular size for me.
That's hilarious.
It's true. So that's the plan, is to pick that thing up. And I don't know if you guys know, it comes in an LE version. So there's the M2 and then there's the M2 LE. The LE comes with, I think, 3 mags. and which is great. And I think they're the different sized mags, so you can like essentially make the grip longer that way.
Okay.
So it comes with 3 mags, I think incandescent sights on it, I believe. And it's negligible more cost. It's the cost of buying more mags to buy the LE. So might as well get the LE. So that's the plan. Although I'm going to tell you right now, I sometimes come into the gun store and I'm surprised. It's like that thing that I didn't know I needed. And so my plan is right now to get the Walther PPS M2 LE, but I would not be surprised if I go in there and something just catches my eye.
See, this is the reason why every gun store owner loves to hire his employees, because he's getting part of that money back every time.
Can you? I mean, I've been there when the guys at Lake Erie Arms are coming off their shift and checking themselves out for the things they're buying. It's awesome, and not small things. Like they're putting money in there, and I'm like, you guys are awesome. So yeah, man. So yeah, planning to do that. I'm trying to think what else. Thinking through a couple of other potential gun purchases, but got away with my wife this past. I'm doing good, man.
Nice. So speaking about concealed carry, just a little something to share with everybody. Not that it matters one way or the other. So, as we've talked about here on the show, I had a surgery a couple of weeks back. Got another one coming up in a couple of weeks, and so anyway, right now I got to wear this compression vest thingy, and so it makes it so when I'm putting on my pants or my shorts, I got like extra clothing. And so it really makes my Glocks, which are typically my concealed carry weapons, my either Glock 19 or Glock 26 are the number ones that I carry. They're like really tight, man. And it's like, it's starting to reach that point where it's just uncomfortable. One, because, part of what they did in the surgery affects the sides. And so it's still a little bit sore. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I just recently was like, you know what? I need to wear my single stack. So I've been back to the Dan Wesson 1911 Dan Wesson bobtail. Good 45. I mean, it doesn't have as many rounds in it as I'd like. It's 8 + 1, and then you got to have a separate magazine for another 8. But I got to tell you, man, the single stack, there's a lot to be said for that, because it's like, oh yeah, comfortable again, baby. It's like, this is good. This is real good.
Yeah, that's why I'm going for that Walther P22, PPS. It's a 1 inch width.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I mean, it's tiny, man. So I can in the waistband carry, and I feel it. But
I am working on a deal right now that I've been working on for a while. It's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to start the DROS process before the end of the year. But it will be for a Glock 48, which of course is their single stack. So I'm looking forward to that, because then I'm like, hey, now I can go back to the Glock, which is my preferred firearm. Mm-hmm. Still 9mm, but hey, can't argue with that. So
it's gonna be lots of fun, man. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta love it when the kids come in right in the middle of the podcast. It's the way we roll around here.
Yeah, sorry.
This is our professional studios. I got my dog squeaking on her squeak toy back behind me. You got your kids running through. It's just the way we roll.
Super fancy here, man. We do it super fancy.
This
is a paid actor that I pay to come in.
Nice. This is so people think you're a family man.
That's just No, it's good stuff. No, I'm excited for the 48 for you, man. That'll be cool.
I'm looking forward to it too. I'm really looking forward to that.
We'll have to see if I stick with the one I'm planning to get. If I go in there and every now and then I'll just look at something and be like, I've never looked at this gun the same way before, and I'll pick it up. And it's dangerous when I go in with money, knowing I'm going to buy something.
Right.
And so that's why I have to do my research and plan and really think this through and make the decision before I get in there, knowing that I still might change.
See, that's why I really got to move to a state where I can buy the guns that I want, because with our freaking roster, and it keeps getting smaller every year because it's a shakedown, to stay on the roster, you got to pay California $25,000 just to stay on it. And they start going, okay, well, like Glock is a great example. Each one of their colors, right? Black, OD green, the gray, all that, they would have to pay $25,000 for each. as if the color somehow changes the firearm, right? And that's why Glock just said, you know what, we're like what we were down to was either black or OD green.
Yeah.
And of course, Gen 3s, because we can't get anything newer than Gen 3 on the roster. And Glock was like, look, we're not paying 25 grand for, Glock 17, Glock 34, Glock 19, Glock 26, just to have OD green on there. We're going to save ourselves. If you look at all the different models, probably, I don't know, 125, 100. Well, actually, no, you got all the 40. I mean, who knows? $250,000 a year. Who knows what they're saving by not giving it to California? But all that does is limit our choices.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many guns that I want. I got to move to a free state. I can't get my wife to move yet. So
got to work on her, man. Well, we might just see, who knows what's going to happen here. Either the Texas GOP is actually talking about secession right now. And I'm like, well, that's a big stretch, but I wish you would do it. I wish we would all secede. It would be the best. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, who knows what else is going to happen with all this stuff.
I see the problem with any secession at this point is who's going to take the national debt? I mean, that's what wars are going to be fought over. Who's going to pay the bill?
Yeah, we're going to fight those wars anyway, unfortunately.
We will, but it would cause it a lot sooner.
Yeah, which historically sooner may be better, because if we wait until all of these other rules have regulated us into the margins to the point where we can't have resources, that's going to be a bad time to have a civil war. And so if we think through how the last one went and how things went with that, the people who can be resources are the ones who will win. That's kind of how it goes. And so, and I always point out, man, the way in which Nazi Germany regulated the Jews, and they just kept incrementally taking away privileges, taking away resources. And then when it was actually time to load them onto these trains and take them to Auschwitz or wherever, they had nothing to fight with. And they'd been regulated to ghettos and had very little resources. We don't want to wait that long. So I'm encouraging people, think through how these things play out. Plan where your line in the sand is going to be, and be ready to defend yourself. Don't give up your weapons. Whatever happens, not just for your sake, but for your neighbor's sake. You need to be there to defend your neighbor's freedom. And so, that's part of why on this podcast we talk about, like, hey, it's ridiculous that this guy is in prison for having a plant. It's ridiculous that this guy gets treated this way. Like, we're plenty of people that are not like us, that we don't fit into the demographics of, that we're advocating for here, because it's threat to freedom, man. And we hate threats to freedom.
I know we're out of time, but you made me think about something. What do you think about the college admission scandal that's sending all these parents to jail because they bribed their kids' way into college?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I got to tell you, it's a little hard on my heart, having had a crush on Aunt Becky for all that time.
Who hasn't?
Watching whatever, to think that she's in prison is like, man, does Uncle Jesse know about this?
Why does she get 2 months and her husband gets 5?
I don't understand. Because it sounded like she was the one planning the whole thing.
And even then, I'm like, but that's literally how you get into college. Like, I used to say from the stage, hey, you want your kid to go to USC, you make a donation to the school. Next thing you know, you got 50-yard line tickets and your kid's in. I'm like, this is a known thing, but now it's an issue that gets you into jail. Like, I was so blown away by that.
I think the issue there was specifically related to the testing. So there was fraudulent testing going on.
I didn't know there was fraudulent testing. I thought it was just like trying to get them in on the, the rowing team and all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's that, because some of it's like you're getting in, you don't actually play the sport, but you're in. There was that thing. But there was somebody else that was there was a tutor. I might be conflating, because there were several stories all coming out at the same time.
Yeah, there was.
So it might not be them. It might be some, but there were essentially people taking admission tests, or there was some actual fraudulent stuff in addition to the.
But see, I would even come back and say, okay, maybe if it's a public school, maybe, but if it's a private school, where's the government thinking they got the jurisdiction here?
Good question. Well, I will say, though, in so many cases, even the private schools are taking some kind of government money somewhere along the line.
But so what if they're taking the money? What is that? I mean, it's still a private institution.
I agree, but that's not how they see it. Yeah. My thing here is I would say that the donations and whatever and paying to get your kid in, I'm totally fine with that. I'm not down with somebody took a test as the kid to get them a higher grade when they couldn't, I'm
not okay with that either, but I also don't know that I believe that's a jailable offense.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah.
Like, okay, so someone else took a test. We're going to send you to jail? Like, what?
I'm with you on that. Yeah, with you on that. I don't think, well, the thing that I always like to say is what does this do? What does sending someone to jail do to fix
Who's the victim too, by the way?
Right. And who's the victim here? And I would say, first of all, if we can't identify a victim, no, I would say if the school thinks that a guy has, or some kid has a certain grade and they don't, and they've inadvertently admitted someone who, can't make a sentence, right? Then it's like, okay, some fraud went on there. But then it's like, expel them, like, hey, you need to pay us back for that, right? Like there's ways to handle that, but sending somebody to jail doesn't fix any of that. And so, yeah, I am generally not down with prison. Like it just doesn't seem to, I'm like, if it's bad enough that we need to put someone away, maybe it's bad enough that they deserve the death penalty. Not in every circumstance, but most of the time it's a nonviolent crime. It is a victimless crime. And so I'm like, then it's nothing. And when it does have a victim, usually it's like, let's do something to fix the problem for that victim. If somebody's been stolen from, if there's been make it financially right for them. And then let's go on our way. But man, if I'm going to be taxed to pay for this guy in prison, then I'm hurt twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's where I'm at on that. But I recognize my position is seen as radical, that we shouldn't put people in jail who didn't hurt anybody is a really radical position.
All I know is I look at that and I was like blown away when I'm like, wait a second, the husband was given 5 months and Aunt Becky was given 2?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense.
By the way, I don't know her actual name. I just call her
Aunt Becky.
Aunt Becky, yeah.
Dude, Aunt Becky has aged well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. It's a shame that she's going to jail, but
she's almost done. Yeah. I think she gets out right before Christmas, I think it is.
This makes me think of because the Snoop Dogg has the show that he does with Martha Stewart where they
I've heard about it, but I didn't think it was a real show.
No, it's real. And they get along. It's kind of fun. And so what's funny is when you recognize that like one of them is a convicted felon and it's not Snoop. I think that's the best thing ever. Like
Martha Stewart's the convicted felon. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
gotta love
anyway, yeah. Any interesting times. So all that said, this has been a fun one, man. We got to talk about some fun stuff today.
We did.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead and give Lake Erie their plug.
Yeah, you guys, we are coming to the end of the year, and I will be honest, I was nervous we wouldn't have guns to sell after the way things have gone. We're selling like crazy. However, we've been managing to keep some pretty decent stock in there, really more than decent. We've got some nice guns in there, some cool guns, some fun guns, some standard guns. If you are in the area, you're in Ohio, whatever, come by Lake Erie Arms, get yourself some guns. I will tell you, we are pushing gift cards right now. It's a great time to buy a gift card so that you can, well, first of all, not violate ATF's bogus standards, but also allow your loved one to pick out the gun that they want. So check out Lake Erie Arms, learms.net, plenty of stuff on there, free downloads and all that. Check us out. We'll see you out here.
And remember, guys, stay strapped or get clapped. We'll talk to you later. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the From Concealment Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.